All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Uriah Guilford. I'm really super excited to have you back on the podcast. Is this the second time or the third time?
This is the second time. Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
second time. I'm surprised it's only been two because I know that I remember the first time I had you on, we just kind of like just nerded out right away, and it was fun to chat. And I know that we got to spend some time last year at the Faith and Practice conference and same sort of thing. I always just enjoy hanging out with you. So thanks for being back on.
Absolutely. I could be a recurring guest if you want. Not a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, sure. We can do like Uriah Fridays or something like that. And
Right.
just like every week we'll just hit record and we'll just see what comes out.
You and I have some similar interests and focuses that line up nicely, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for folks who don't know who you are and what you do, so why don't you just share a little bit about your story and what are you doing to help therapists these days?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Uriah Guilford, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist based out of Northern California, about an hour north of San Francisco. And I do have a group practice here that serves mostly teens, young adults, and families. That's been in existence for about 7 years as a group, and then I've been a therapist for over 20 years, which is kind of wild.
Wow.
And technically, I have the title of retired therapist. I haven't seen clients in 2 years,
Oh wow.
so
I didn't know that.
yeah, that's actually been a really great change. And I think soon I'm going to write a post, possibly titled "Confessions of a Retired Therapist." Should be a fun one. Yeah. And then in addition to that, so I manage the group of therapists here. And
Hmm.
in addition to that, about 5 years ago, I started Productive Therapist, which is a virtual assistant agency just for mental health private practice owners. And we've got a bunch of cool stuff connected to that as well. A bunch of programs and coaching and courses and all kinds of things that I've created. I love providing resources to therapists and helping them succeed, both
Yeah.
in the context of my group practice and with productive therapists. Just it gets me excited.
Yeah, I can tell because I feel like every time I turn around like on social media, I can see like you're launching some new thing or just a new resource. Like tell it's impressive. I'm like, how does he do that? He really is a productive therapist because he's got like so much stuff coming out. Tell me just share a little bit more about those resources. So like what kind of things are you excited about, that you've kind of launched in the last couple of months?
Definitely. And to be honest, I'm trying to focus on doing fewer things and doing them better. That's generally
Mhm.
a good idea. But
Yeah.
yeah, one of the things that I'm going to start working on again soon is the directory. So I built what I call the only business directory for therapists.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
it's at directory.productivetherapist.com. Very proud of it. Totally free to use. And we've got over 200, I think 210 businesses listed, from bookkeepers to CPAs to business coaches to design firms,
Hmm.
SEO, virtual assistants, all companies that focus on supporting therapists. So I'm pretty excited about building that even more going into this year.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
that's pretty cool. And right now, the biggest thing that I'm doing is writing a book for group practice owners called The Productive Practice. And so that'll
That's
be done
awesome.
end of this month. Yeah.
Oh wow. I didn't know you were that far into it. I think I saw again on social media that you mentioned about writing. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
How has that process been for you? The whole
Really
writing.
challenging. I enjoy writing, and I've written a number of ebooks over time, mostly in the past focused on parenting teenagers,
Mm.
and then I've written a ton for productive therapists. But this is my first proper self-published book,
Hmm.
and it's actually coming together really nicely. But I've had some serious challenges with just the content and how to make it interesting and fun and applicable.
Yeah.
But I'm super excited about it right now. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, we'll have you back on again when you launch the book and we can talk more about that for sure.
definitely.
All right, well let's segue to today's topic. So, we were just talking before we hit record here, just about some of the things that you and I have both learned as it pertains to improving conversion rates on private practice websites. So why don't you kind of just start it off? Tell us a little bit more about like, what you do that makes this interesting to you. Because I know you consult with people. So tell me like the context of how you've really gotten in and learned how to improve conversion rates on private practice websites and why this is important.
Yeah, so I think for me, this is not actually connected to any of my professional services directly. I'm very much an amateur that just is passionate and interested in web design and what they call conversion optimization, which is basically just making tweaks and changes to a website that leads people to take an action that you want
Hmm.
them to take. Is that pretty fair description?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
And that probably comes from, I've been building my own websites, like I said, as an amateur for like 12 years. I was thinking about this. My very first site was built with iWeb. I don't know if you even remember that. Do you remember that?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a tool that Apple had back in the day where you could build your own little website.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was so rough. It
For
was so
me it
rough.
was, do you remember Angel Fire?
No.
You don't remember Angel Fire? So that was, I don't know how old you are. You don't look a day older than 25 to me, but yeah, that was probably around like 2001 or
Uh,
so. And it was like, it was one of those, yeah, like those things you go to a website and it was all like just ugly as hell. And you were able to make your own little website, your own little place on the web.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I think I've been building websites for a long time. Like I said, very poorly in the beginning. And then as the tools have gotten better and better for somebody who doesn't know code, I've been able to build nicer sites. So
Yeah.
that's been really fun. But from the very beginning, from 2008, 2009, um, I was trying to inspire people that landed on my website to take the action to get in touch
Yeah.
and hopefully become a counseling client. So always just playing around with different ways to engage people from the website to get to my couch.
Yeah.
Um, and then just fell in love with marketing over the years, and my love for marketing and technology kind of combined. And so I've just been sort of an amateur, um, you know, passion student, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you're an amateur anymore because you definitely know your stuff. Just just from talking with you, you've worked on enough websites and you've also, I think, helped enough people that you know what you're talking about for sure. So
Thanks.
what
I'll
do
drop
you
it.
what do you think, where do we begin with increasing your conversion rates? Like what's like the first thing that you feel like people need to know in order to get started getting
So
people
there's
to take better action?
there's three tips that I want to share today, and these are just the things that I tend to focus on when I'm looking at therapist websites, which, by the way, I do for fun, and for my coaching clients as well. Because there's a lot of things you could change and optimize to get more conversions on your website. But the three that I think are most important are improving your copywriting, specifically the headline on the homepage, creating clear call to action buttons and making them.
Hmm.
I've got several tips on that one, and then also simplifying the contact page. So those are the three things that I wanted to chat with you about, and I would
Yeah.
love to hear your thoughts on these too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that those are three things that definitely come up for myself and people I consult with as well. And when we're building websites or writing content, like those are definitely three things that we focus on. So let's start with that headline on the homepage. The homepage specifically, you said. How come the homepage specifically?
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a question. Why is the
Yeah.
homepage important on a therapist website or any business website for that matter?
So one thing that I teach and what I find myself saying all the time is that like your homepage is almost like I don't know what the reference is, but it's kind of like in those like movies where you're coming to a room and there's multiple doors. And it's like, okay, which door am I going to choose to walk through? And it has to do with, well, where do I want to go? So for me, a homepage can be a pretty general page, because there's different doors that your potential client can walk through. So I always say the goal of a homepage is to get somebody to the information that they're looking for as quickly
Hmm.
as possible.
Totally. It's like the front door, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not everybody lands on the homepage first, but at least when I
Yeah.
look at my Google Analytics, the majority of the website visits start on the homepage, or there's
Yeah.
more visitors to the homepage than any other page. Is that
Yeah.
usually true? I
Yeah.
think.
For the most part. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'd say as sort of a general statistic that's
Yeah. So
often
it's
the
like the
most
first
popular page.
impression.
Yeah.
First impression, it's the place where people land and then probably make a decision pretty quickly if they're going to stay on the site or check out any of the other options that are on the
Right.
site.
Right.
So one thing that I find, well, obviously as therapists, we're not expert marketers or copywriters, right? So we do the best that we can. And some of us work with professionals, very much recommended. to work with a web designer that knows what they're doing and or a copywriter.
Hmm.
Um, but I'll give an example. So when I look at therapist websites, oftentimes the headline could be improved significantly
Hmm.
with the goal in mind of compelling the website visitor to want to learn more. That's it,
Yeah.
right? The first words on the website should cause them to want to read the next line and then the next line and scroll and then
Yeah.
click something.
Hmm.
So I was looking at somebody's website just this week, and the headline, and when I say headline, I just mean the large words at the top of the website, right?
Right.
It was clearly written for SEO. It had
Hmm.
geography, so it had cities in it, and it had therapy. Basically, it was therapy in these three cities.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's helpful in the sense that if I land on this website, I kind of know, okay, you offer therapy in
Hmm.
potentially my city.
Yeah.
But how would you rate that as a headline? Like for me, let's say I put on my site therapy in Santa Rosa.
Right. Yeah. So that's often the biggest challenge, that we have, because you're trying to speak to that ideal client, but you're also trying to get your ideal client to show up to the
Mm-hmm.
website. So this kind of gets into the weeds here. And so, like, the way that we often handle this is, we will, if somebody's working with our copywriter especially, we'll focus on like a nice headline, that does really capture or inspire, but then kind of follow that up with a sub headline that is maybe smaller, that
Mm-hmm.
has that information of this is exactly what we do and where we do it, or this is exactly who we help and where we're located, that sort of thing. And so when you get into sort of the geeky part and the behind the scenes of the SEO, that smaller headline is actually the H1 on the website, which is the first thing that Google's going to look at. And then that larger headline, that's really sort of the vanity headline, the sort of grip and like pull you in sort of headline, that one is maybe like an H2. So I know that gets into a little bit of like the geeky stuff, but like that's how we solve that problem, because sometimes people have one or the other. It'll be like you said, like just therapy in Atlanta, Georgia, which could work. That could get some traffic to the website. But when people land on there, are you pulling them in and like really speaking to, like, their pain point and the benefits they're going to receive from your service?
I think the way you lay that out is perfect. Like an interesting, compelling headline that's focused on the potential client, and then below that, or somewhere below that, uh,
Yeah.
um, some more SEO kind of friendly words. So I want to share like four different types of headlines, and I promise I won't spend a lot of time on this. Just I love words, and I love
Do it.
creating
Yeah.
creating messaging, using words to create messaging that
Yeah.
conveys like compelling ideas. And this is just what I learned from my study of copywriting. But with headlines, there's all kinds of different ones you can write. The four that I like to look at are competitive, benefit, inspirational, and curiosity.
Mm. Yeah.
And I don't do this all the time, but whenever I'm writing a blog post or, creating a headline for a website, I try to write four versions for the same thing,
Mm.
or an email newsletter for that matter. And then I
Yeah.
choose the one that I think is best.
Yeah.
So you either want to go with something that's competitive, and I'll give some examples from my counseling group. For example, like a
Right.
competitive headline would be, and I wouldn't actually do this, but the best family counselors in Sonoma County,
Mm.
something like that
Yeah.
highlights, or the only EMDR therapists in this town, right? Something that really shows why this website and these people are better than others. That's a little tricky one for mental health because we don't really want to say like we're the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of like other ways to apply that. Yeah. Okay.
It's kind
Yeah.
of an interesting one to play
It-
around with.
yeah. It's funny, and this might take us on a tangent. So like I'm thinking about, I went to Kentucky last year. I visited all these distilleries, and I noticed every single distillery had their own competitive thing that they harped on, like that. It was like
Right.
the first bourbon to be in bottles, or the oldest continually operating distillery in America, like. So I mean, you can kind of think about what sets you apart as a private
Mm-hmm.
practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's got my mind
I
like
think
reeling
it's
it.
worth exploring that for a counseling practice just to see if you can find something that doesn't feel, you know, inauthentic or
Right.
boastful, but
Yeah.
it but is accurate and compelling.
Yeah. Because
So I
even
think
like when you
that's
say that, that like, oh wow, if somebody puts that on the website, like it gives that sense of authority once when you land on that page, and to know like, oh wow, these people are the only EMDR
right.
specialists in my area. Wow. Okay.
And if that's true, then you
Yeah.
should definitely let people know that. And in some towns, in some locales, like let's go with like a sex therapist in a small town. Let's say they might be the only sex therapist in that town, or the only practice that serves
Yeah.
those needs, right? So that's
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
And then benefit, I think usually benefit is a good way to go, just because that oftentimes we miss that focus on like what is the potential client going to get from just visiting your website
Hmm.
or using your services.
Yeah.
So, and this is the actual headline that I landed on for my newest website, because we changed the name of the practice about last year.
Okay.
And this is not super exciting, to be honest, but it's very clear. And the
Yeah.
headline says counseling for the whole family.
Mm.
But you read that and you should know pretty quickly,
Yeah.
and from the name of the business, that we provide family counseling.
Yeah. Hmm.
Simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love it, just like straightforward. And that's kind of another point that we can make about headlines is I see a lot of websites where they're using a quote as that sort of headline, or just something that's a little bit too poetic, and like it's just not clear
Mm-hmm.
what it is you do or what is the benefit of what you do.
Most people don't make this mistake anymore, but back in the day, I saw a lot of websites where the headline was "Welcome to my website."
I knew you were gonna
Remember
say,
that?
I knew that's what you were gonna
Yeah,
say when you teed that up. Yep.
yeah.
I still see it sometimes.
It does. It creeps in there. So then, inspirational can be related to the benefit, but like
Hmm.
the first headline that I wrote for my practice was the one that I liked for a while was "We help families find their rhythm."
Hmm.
And that was like kind of get your groove back, get
Yeah.
like increase your connection with your family, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Eventually I decided that that was a little too clever, and so I vetoed it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Even though I thought it was fun, because we have a music theme for the practice.
Oh, cool.
um
Yeah.
yeah, so something inspirational, and that's not too hard to do with mental health, because we are helping people transform their lives and their relationships in some way,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And then the last one is curiosity. Not usually the best for a website. It might be better for like an email newsletter headline or a blog post title,
Hmm.
but something that makes them want to read more
Hmm.
and find out more, right?
Hmm. You have an
So
example
those,
for that one?
let me see here.
Put you on the spot.
I put "We help families find their rhythm" under that one. I'm not sure.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, no, but I love these. I love how you broke it down into four different types, and that gives people really, anyone listening to this, they can, I'm sure they're thinking through what their headline is on their website right now, and see how you can go back and kind of tweak it to make it a little bit more clear or a little bit more
Yeah,
engaging.
it makes more of a difference than you realize. Also,
Yeah.
if you want to hear these right now, I did write 4 headlines for this podcast episode.
Yes, I do want to hear it, because that's always the thing. The last thing I do is like, oh, what should we title this thing?
Right,
Yeah, let's
right.
hear it.
It's hard sometimes. Okay,
Yeah.
competitive. The number one way to get more clients from your website. Benefit. 3 tips to get more clients from your website.
Hmm.
Similar.
Hmm.
Inspirational. How to make your website super helpful for new clients.
Hmm.
Or curiosity. The website improvement strategy no one ever talks about.
Oh, I like the enticing one. Little
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
clickbait
Got
side.
to make
I
sure
would.
we can
I
deliver on
think.
that, right?
I think I usually land on the benefits when it comes to the
Yeah.
podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think for me, like I just like clarity too. Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
just love like, okay, yeah, we're talking about 3 tips. It lets people know exactly what you're going to receive from listening to this episode. So I wouldn't be surprised if I land on that.
It is a good one. It's a good one. And you with any headline, whatever it's for, you never want to do a bait and switch. You want to
Yeah.
make sure that what you promise in the headline is actually what you deliver
Yeah.
in
Absolutely.
the website or the email or whatever it is. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
So for anybody listening to this, just take a look at your headline right now and see if it resonates. If you think potential clients would read it and kind of know what you do immediately, and then be interested to find out more,
Yeah.
and then play around with some other options. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I love it. Well, let's get to the next tip. So you
Okay.
talked about calls to action. So obviously, I think we need to start with what is a call to action? And why is that important?
Yeah. So the whole focus of conversion optimization is leading someone to make a decision, to take an action,
Hmm.
not a decision rather, but an action. And for most counseling businesses, whether it's a solo practice or a group practice, that's some version of get in touch, call us, text us, fill out this web form, right? Get in
Yep.
touch.
Yep.
Something like that. And what I notice more often than not is that there's too many therapist websites that don't have a clear, compelling call to action that is repeated over and over again.
Hmm.
I don't know. Do you see that? You ever notice that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the times we work on a lot of websites, for SEO, and so that is one of the parts of doing SEO work is we don't want people just to land on the website. We do want them to take action, and so we use the calls to action to improve SEO. In that, if you are on a page that's all about couples therapy and you're talking about those pain points, you don't want to just leave them hanging at the end of the page. Like you want
Mm-hmm.
to maybe use one of your like benefits or inspirational words to transition from what they just learned about couples therapy to, okay, this is the next step.
Absolutely. Yeah. And believe it or not, you can only fit usually like, I don't know, 3 to 4 or 5 words on a button on a website. So
Yeah.
you have to be very selective about what you say.
Right.
But if you think about it, between these two, which one do you think is more compelling? Contact us or get help today?
Probably get help today because it's more direct in that this is going to benefit me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think like learn more is not that great. Schedule
Yeah.
an appointment, much
Hmm.
better. Right.
Right. Yeah, a
Like the
lot of
one I
people
use,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the one we use on our site is Get Help Today. I like that.
Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think a lot of people that we work with, they offer those free consultations. So like a lot of times they're like,
Mm-hmm.
connecting their call to action to maybe like a simple practice scheduler. So it's another place where I also like to be like very clear of like if someone's going to click on this button, they need to know what to expect, from that next step. So if somebody is doing, a scheduler, it could be just very clear of like schedule your free consultation, something like that.
That's strong. Yeah, I like that.
And I want to also to like back up when I'm for me and sort of how I see calls to action. I think yes, it certainly is a button, but in the context of like web design and what we do at Private Practice Elevation, I always like to make sure that when we talk about the main call to action in my mind, I think of what is going across the bottom of the page that is transitioning from the
Mm,
informational part of a web page to this is how you take the next step. So, and that's just me. That's just kind of like the way I come at it with design. And so like we'll often have a header of a section and then, discuss, hey, here's how you take the next step. And then we have that button, that really stands out below.
I like that. Yeah,
Because that
I like
way
that a
I
lot.
think for the design that also like helps to just transition someone's brain from that informational stuff to,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is
What next?
this is what we do next. So I'm actually gonna I want to pull up just for an example. So this is a design that we're working on right now. So we've got this call to action on the bottom of the homepage. It says, "You're ready to move forward. I can help." So that's kind of the background of this whole
Mm-hmm.
section goes across the whole page. It's a darker color, like high contrast, so it pulls your eye right down into that. And then so that's the headline of that section. And then it says, "Get personalized support." This is in smaller text. "Get personalized support and expert help to overcome the emotional, life, marital, or business challenges you face. Call today to schedule your free consultation so you can create the life and relationships you want." So that's sort of just like small
Mm-hmm.
text. People may or may not read that, but it just explains what's going to happen next. And then we have that larger button that says schedule a free consultation. So that's kind of like when I think calls to action, I kind of lump all of that together.
That's great. Yeah, and those are all things that lead to that button, right? The headline,
Right.
the sub headline, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
H2, then down
Yeah.
to the button. Yeah, for
Right.
sure. That
Yeah.
makes so much sense. One thing, there's two things that I recommend, and hopefully you agree with this. I don't know, but I like to choose a really contrasty color for the
Yeah.
buttons. Like
Hmm.
I was doing a sort of a quick website review for one of my coaching clients, and her buttons were white on like a light
Mm.
colored background.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what would it look like if you used the yellow in your logo? Because it actually was not being used elsewhere on the site very much. Make the
Yeah.
button yellow so it actually like kind of jumps off the page a little bit and says,
Yeah.
hey, look, I'm here.
Hmm.
So making the buttons like kind of stand out.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I see too often is like, let's say on a home page, you scroll from the top of the page to the bottom of the page, and I've counted as many as 8 or 9 different calls to action. Read my
Hmm.
blog, sign up for my newsletter,
Yeah.
contact us, right? So many
Yeah.
different things. And then the person visiting that page is like, what do I do?
Right.
So
Yeah.
what do I do first?
It's decision fatigue. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's you got to be pretty careful. And I kind of see a button a little bit different, like an informational button to like learn more about couples therapy. I see that a little differently than a call to action, and I encourage people to decide what is the one thing that someone can do that leads them to take that next step with you.
Sure.
So sometimes it might take them a couple pages to get to actually
Mm-hmm.
clicking on that call to action. So, but there's still like a balance. If you have other buttons on the page, oftentimes when it comes to the design, what we'll do is we'll have a more muted button. Like maybe that is where you have your white buttons or something, like most of the buttons are all one color, but then that again, that main call to action, that schedule an appointment or, get help today, that is like an accent color that does stand out. So that's kind of how we solve that problem when it comes to the design. But yes, we don't want to have um sign up for my email list like competing with schedule get help today, competing with I've got a webinar coming up, that sort of stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's, I mean, it's hard to design a single web page with only one call to action. It is, and
Yeah.
it's not always the best way to go.
Right.
But to highlight the ones, the one that is most important,
Yeah.
is really really helpful. So I think
Yep.
that's the second recommendation. Number one is like great headline. Number two, clear call to action buttons and a process. Like you're kind of laying out sort of the roadmap, if you will, to
Right.
the desired action, which is good.
Yeah.
And then that should lead people to some form of contact, like
Hmm.
some whatever your preferred contact method is. I think most of us send people to our contact page or some sort of, I don't know what else would be an alternative to that. Because people do things a little bit differently, but I usually send all my call to action buttons to my contact page. Do you have any
Yeah.
other recommendations for that?
Other things that we do, like, so some folks, they really just want to book in those free consultations,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of we'll have a, contact menu button as just a link on the page, which should always be there for those folks who do want to just fill out an email form or, find your phone number. But some people, and this has worked for my wife in her private practice, like driving people to schedule a free consultation, because then it's less back and forth, less admin. She just knows, oh, I've got some potential clients that I'm going to be, calling today. So those are kind of the two things we see, and it really depends on the practice, depends on the therapist. Like we've worked with plenty of larger group practices, and they know like we just get really good conversions on our contact form. So we just send everybody straight to that contact form, and that's the one thing that they're going to do to get started.
Yeah, that makes good sense. When I look at people's contact pages, some are really great and simple and clear, and then others are provide too many options and
Mm-hmm.
or are laid out in a way that's very like just not not simple, right?
Not user friendly. You don't know what you're supposed to do on that page.
Exactly right. And so the
Yeah.
first one is like giving people too many options. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of simplicity and like minimalism, if you will.
Yeah.
But when it comes to contact options, if you give people 5 things to do, right? Call me, fax me, maybe not fax, but call me, email me, fill
Yeah.
out this form. Here's an online scheduler.
Yeah.
I just think that's too much
Yeah.
information. Too
Yeah.
many. If we were to use the analogy that you brought up before, like walking in the front door of a house, and then you got 72 rooms, and you're like, oh
Right.
no, which
Yeah.
way do I go?
Yeah.
Maybe that's an overstatement, but you get what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
So what has worked for your practice, as far as your contact page? Is it just a contact form? Do you also include like your phone number, email address, or anything like that there?
I've played around with different things over the years. For quite some time, I've been using an online scheduler, kind of like I think you mentioned your wife uses.
Hmm.
We use Schedule Once for that. And so we prioritize that in the sense that literally on the page it says the quickest way to get matched with the best therapist is to schedule your consultation call. Um, so that works out pretty well. Funny enough, there's more people. We measured this recently, looked at the metrics, but there's more people that actually just pick up the phone and call or click the button to call
Yeah.
than schedule a call, which
Hmm.
is interesting. Not surprising, but interesting.
Yeah.
But we have found that the conversion rates are higher for folks who schedule a call, which is,
Okay.
I don't know. I've always thought that was interesting, and I think part of the reason that happens is because they schedule the call and then they get reminders, and then
Hmm.
they are more likely to show up for the call. And if they're more likely to show up for the call, they're more likely to become a client.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
that's the way that I look at it,
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense. And
Yeah,
that kind of tees up the next point that I wanted to make is tracking this stuff and
sure.
being curious about it too. Because and that might take time. And I know like kind of back to how you kind of started this point is really like it can be confusing for people when they land on a page and it's like, call me, email me. Typically we do want to have that information on the page because some people they do just want to pick up the phone, but finding out what is the main way that people convert, and putting that front and center, and then tracking that, and that's gonna take a little bit of time. So yeah, so keep good records, even if it's just a
Yeah.
spreadsheet. You kind of find out like, okay, this person scheduled a call, okay, or this person just called me directly. We've worked with many practices who are like, I just want people to call me because I know that that's how they convert. So we're not going to focus on a contact form front and center. It's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
call us today.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. And some of that is based on the demographic too. Like
Yeah, right.
if you work with elderly people, they're not likely going to jump through a lot of hoops that are
Yeah,
technologically challenging,
right.
right? They
Hmm.
much will probably be more likely to pick up the phone and call. It
Exactly. Yeah.
seems like younger people would, if you give them the option to send a text message, they might be
Hmm.
down for that, right?
Yeah.
So you kind
Yep.
of got to look at who your audience is. But your point
Yeah.
too on keeping track of the actual numbers and statistics, and then making decisions based on that, really good idea. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you're not just shooting in the dark. Like
Yeah,
the numbers tell you that, okay, this many people scheduled and this many people converted, or this many people called and this many people converted or didn't convert.
definitely. And I know not all of us as therapists are very good at that or interested in that.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not as good at that as like at split testing, like A/B split testing and that kind of thing,
Yeah, that's a
as
whole
I
new
would like to
world.
be. But what I do is I actually work with a marketing company that helps me gather that information and then helps me make decisions based on that. Like the company that I work with recently installed heat mapping. I think this is the second time we did it, but they installed heat
Yeah.
mapping software, which you know what this is, but your
Yeah.
audience may or may not, which shows you visually where people go on your website, and
Hmm.
it can actually also show you where people are likely to click or don't click,
Yeah. Right.
and how much they read on a page. All kinds of cool stuff, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
fascinating.
We've used some of that in the past. I'm blanking on the platform that we've used for that, but it's super helpful because like we had one one person we were working with. We were doing SEO for a while, and people were coming to the website, but people weren't taking action. So it was like, okay, well, let's see what they're doing on the website, because now we're getting people to the website, but they're not converting. So let's understand where they're clicking. Also, going into Google Analytics and seeing the journey.
Mm-hmm.
They go to this page and then they go to this page and then they drop off here. You can certainly geek out on this stuff, but
Yeah.
that's what data can do for you. It can help you make those educated decisions on what needs to change on the website.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think at the end of the day, the goal in my mind is always how can I make it as easy as possible for people to land on my website and follow the path to get the support that they need? Because that's what we're trying
Yeah.
to do. We're just trying to connect with the people who need our services,
Yep.
and all this technology and marketing and websites. That's all it's about, is
Yeah.
getting the help to the right people. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our conversation really well right there. So we'll just kind
I
of put
think
a
so.
put a bow on that. And yeah, it's so good to hang out with you, Uriah. I really appreciate it. I think we certainly could do a Fridays with Uriah because I know that we could just geek out on all this the website stuff forever. But yeah, we'll definitely have you back on.
You can come on my
So
podcast too. I don't think we've done that yet. That'd be cool.
yeah, I think maybe I was a while ago, but
You wrote an
it's
article for me for sure,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think I did. It's been a while. I think that we need to make that
I
happen.
know.
I'd love to.
I know. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
Well, why don't you share a little bit more about where people can find you if they're interested in what you do?
Absolutely. All of our resources are at productivetherapist.com. And I guess I should mention that I do have a mini course that's kind of
Yeah.
talks about the things that we covered today. So I should stop calling myself an amateur, like you said.
You're doing this
But
for
it's,
real.
yeah, that mini course is at productivetherapist.com/courses. And it's called From Website to Couch.
Cool.
So yeah, check it out. It's free right now for a little while at least.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes for this episode. And yeah, really appreciate it, Uriah.
Sounds good. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks.